Welcome to our special Earth Day webinar, Eileen Fisher on the sustainability of fashion's business model. We will be hosting a Q&A at the end of the session, so please submit questions in the Q&A in Zoom. And also this webinar will be available on demand on the Vogue Business website for anyone who wants to watch it later. I'm Rachel Cernansky, Senior Sustainability Editor at Vogue Business, and I'm here with Eileen Fisher, founder and CEO of her eponymous brand. Eileen has been reflecting on her business model since the pandemic upended all of our lives. And I've been looking in most of my stories this month at the role of business models in encouraging overproduction and in turn, the total impacts that the industry has on the planet. Thank you for joining us to talk about fashion and sustainability and some of the biggest questions that the industry needs to contend with. Welcome, Eileen.
Hi, thank you, Rachel. Nice to be here with you.
It's great to be here. I'm excited, excited to chat. So let's begin. You have been talking about this concept of radical simplicity in the last year. Right. What does that mean? What does that mean exactly in terms of your brand's business model?
Oh, right. Oh, well, in terms of the business model, first of all, everything about my brand was intended to be about simplicity, and from the clothes themselves, and over the years, the whole idea of sustainability and simplifying production and all of that. But what I came to realize when the pandemic hit was that we needed to radically simplify the whole business. That we were overproducing, that we were following the fashion business model of, more, give them a reason to buy more, monthly deliveries, and then the markdown cycles. Though we still do monthly deliveries, we build the season differently. So we, both went back in and reorganized and re-simplified the clothes themselves. And that was really first and foremost. But the business model, we changed the way we deliver and the way we mark down. So to kind of slow down the cycle. For example, we start delivering in January, February, the beginning of spring, but we're laying the foundation for the season. And we this year, for example, we started with neutral colors, and then we started layering on different months of colors and pieces that worked back to the other pieces, so that what ended up happening is that when you get into full season, everything works together, rather than you look at the floor and you see that 2 months before you have to mark that down because it's part of a different story. It doesn't go together. It's not whole. So what we've done is we've stopped the mad markdown cycle of every month, another series of markdowns. Every 2 months, we mark down the product from 2 months ago. And so along with that, we've also pulled back on the number of styles we're offering. We've just reduced down and selected our most favorite things. It's creating, like, we're getting better sell-throughs. It's really, really interesting. Just this kind of radical, it's almost like decluttering. You declutter your house. It's like, for me, I started by like taking away all the prints and the stripes and all the extra things that we were doing, and just went back to just getting the clothes really simple. And I don't know if that did that make sense in terms of the model itself? Was it,
Yeah, that made a lot of sense. And that's exactly, why we're here to talk. And you said you're getting better sell-throughs. Can you talk more about, how is it going? It looks like it feels good for you personally.
Yeah. Oh, it feels so much better. It's going better too. Well, with COVID lifting and all of that, that's helping too, of course. But so what's happening, what's really interesting to me is like looking at the years, the deliveries from January, like right now we're looking at January, February, March, April, and we're continuing to sell. Our sell-throughs are twice as high on the January, February, March um, deliveries, even as we're delivering May into the stores. So our current deliveries are doing well, but because they're building on and they go back with the other deliveries, those deliveries come back to life and they work with everything. So what we're finding is our sell-throughs on the previous months, January, February, March, even without markdowns, are double what they were a year ago.
Mhm. That's fascinating. I think that's
I know, it's really interesting, isn't it? And we're pulling out of all the sales and markdown situations in the department stores, and it's really interesting. And I think we had to commit to, we're going to produce less, we're going to sell less, we're going to have less revenue, and we had to scale our whole business back in order to do that. And I think that's, first of all, I mean, during COVID, probably a lot of people had to do that anyway, just because it's been so hard. But for me, it felt very true to what I was really always wanting to do. And it was about, returning to the core concept of the line, which really is about just simple garments and simple garments that work together and serve a lot of different women and different body types and for different purposes. And
Mhm. Yeah.
I don't know, ask me another question. I feel like I'm rambling somewhere.
I ramble too.
Really, it's good. Good things come from rambling.
Yeah, exactly. Well, you mentioned that you got to this size, you were following the fashions, the industry's sort of practices and business model. Can you talk about, so it sounds like it wasn't your intention necessarily to build the brand to the size it was before COVID. Was that
Yeah.
a result of pressure that you felt, and where did that pressure come from, and who sets, the expectations that you felt yourself trying to meet?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think first of all, it was never about growth for me. It was never that bigger was better. It was always just, if people wanted the product, I wanted to offer it. I wanted to serve more women. I think when the department stores they would just want more new things. They would be a little bored with our basic designs, and I understand that. I get bored too. So I'm always trying to think, what makes it fresh? What makes it new, that belongs to this moment, but that has a timelessness about it, that will last, that isn't just for this moment, but it belongs to the moment, but it can belong to the future moment. So I'm always trying to think, will this garment be still valid in 10 years or 20 years? So I don't know if I answered your question. What was your question there? Sorry.
Where the pressure comes
Where
from.
the pressure comes from. Yeah, I think that, it's a funny thing because you celebrate, oh my God, that's selling. We're selling more. Look, I'm even talking about our sell-throughs are better, So there's a desire to, and it's on the part of everyone at the company, I think, to build the business and to make more. And some of it comes from the stores wanting more different things. And some of it comes from seeing the needs of customers, like, what are we going to wear to work now? And so I think the most important thing is to make choices, is to edit and to simplify and to clarify. So I think where the pressure comes, maybe it's ourselves. I don't even know. It's the industry. It's a funny thing, Why do we do that? Why do we,
Yeah.
Why do we eat something and want to eat more of it? I don't know. Because it's good, it feels
Right.
good. We just keep doing more, and more isn't necessarily better. It just makes us
Mhm.
fatter,
Right.
something like that. So, it sort of needs a little bit of boundaries or a little bit of control or something like that. And I think we just kind of got out a little bit out of control, because it seemed good. It seemed people wanted, and so keep going. And then you've got a kind of a machine or a monster that you've created, and then you've got to keep feeding it because you've hired a lot of people, and people need to grow, and they need opportunities, and they need raises, and you know.
Right.
But you have to control it, and do it in a way that's sustainable and that's good. And I call it good growth. How do we grow in
Yeah. And
meaningful ways?
that point about not being bored, and the like desire for new things, and retailers wanting new designs, and like that seems, I guess what my real question is how you think that what you're talking about now can be adopted by other brands, if like, because it sounds like it's more philosophical for you, and and so like that's not a business practice that that another company can just sort of write into their plan. So how does that translate to other companies, and dealing with that tension about wanting timeless but also needing to provide
Needing
new.
new, right. Yeah. Well, I do think some of the things that I was talking about earlier around the model of markdowns and the cycle of more new, and thinking about the season as a whole and building into it, rather than kind of that planned obsolescence of we do this and then we mark that down and bring in the new, we mark that down and bring in the new,
Mhm.
like um, I think that that could apply to other brands. That doesn't have to just be my philosophy. I think others could
Mhm.
build a season in that way. You have to really look at the whole thing very holistically.
Yeah.
So we look now at all of our colors across the whole year, all of our fabrics across the whole year, all of the shapes and how they build and work together. So that's an idea probably others could lean into and think about and see if that can apply.
Okay. Okay. That's yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I think that's something that some companies are starting to think about more, as a result of COVID, and just sort of like managing supply in a way that
Yeah.
less vulnerable to disruption. So
And one of the other things I kind of think about is sort of the 80-20 rule. We do need some new, but what makes it new? Like right now, I'm thinking about new as using different color, you know, as like simple pieces, but in some really fun colors. That's been really interesting as a way to make it new. But if a color looks good on you, it doesn't have to go out of fashion. You can
Mhm.
wear that
Right.
color for years if it's a color that's flattering on you. So
Mhm. Yeah, that's true. So a lot of this kind of ties into the problem of overproduction, which is what I wanted to talk about a lot. This, it's been the focus of my all of my Earth Month
oh,
stories.
that's good. That's really good.
And,
Yeah.
and
Oh,
it's an issue
right.
that a lot of.
Painful, isn't it? So
Sorry.
awful. Yes.
Yeah, yeah, and a lot of people are arguing that it's the really the single biggest issue that the industry needs to deal with. It's driven by constant demand, and it's just so as sustainably as you make an individual thing, there's still just the total mass impact. So I just can you talk about how can like again, I guess, who sets those expectations, and how
Right.
can young founders avoid the pressure to grow in unsustainable ways?
Right. Oh, that's good. I think, well, something maybe this could apply. We're very passionate about the whole idea of circular and taking responsibility for our clothes. So we take our clothes back. I'm sure you're familiar with our program. We've been doing that for 13 years. We reuse and recycle, we resell. There's a whole market in just reselling our clothes, which is very interesting to me. And not only that, then we're actually creating another whole business with remaking. So you can actually take responsibility for the things you make and turn it into additional business without making more. So we resell in a lot of our stores our recycled clothing. It does call for you to make good quality things and things that last. And it's very affirming for me, for our concept and the timelessness of our clothes. And people love coming in and seeing the current things and then pulling old pieces. And that's a really interesting idea. And so that's an idea that I think young brands can work with, create a circular model. And then what do you do with the things that you can't sell? And so we're also doing that. I do think that that's another important part, that whole circular and taking responsibility. I think we have to be responsible for the textile waste, and that would slow down production. Because if companies, like right now, I think it's 8% of the waste in the landfill in New York is textile waste. And it's 8 or 9, I don't know, something like that. It's a lot. And if we had to pay to send our clothes to the landfill, that we, even the clothes that were destroyed or the clothes that we couldn't sell, I mean, a lot of companies just send them to the landfill. If people had to take responsibility for that, then companies would have to slow down and figure out, first of all, what am I making? Is it good enough to resell? And, what can I do with it? What can I do with the fabric when I can't sell it as clothes anymore? So I think, I don't know. I think that this is a really important piece of, like, if I think about new business models, they have to be more holistic. They have to include the sort of external impact of the things that we do, the air that we use, the water that we use, and obviously through, things like regenerative
Culture. Yeah.
Agriculture and, safer chemistry, we can cut down on a lot of those kind of impacts. But I think that overproduction and overconsumption I think it's half of the problem. I think we really got to slow down and really think about, how do we make great companies that make great things that, that last and that work and that we love, and that we can feel proud to be a part of. And what does that mean for new young companies? And
right.
How do we design like that? Yeah.
Yeah. And the designing for circularity is something that people are starting to pay more attention to, but it's definitely an under sort of appreciated, like, you can't have circularity if you're not designing things to last and to be repaired and to be recycled.
Which comes back in this industry, it comes back to fabric. Well, we're really seeing it with all the fabrics that come back, and what can we do with this? And how do we reuse it? And that's that's a little scary, but I think some of the things we do is getting more and more concentrated on less fabrics, because when you get to the other end, you have to sort your cottons with your cottons and your wools with your wools and silks with silks, and you have to recycle by fabric. And so I would always recommend that companies focus on the fabrics that they love, and new designers should concentrate on just a few fabrics that then you have a waste stream that you can work with, rather than just being all over the place.
Yeah, and it seems part of that simplifying message.
Right. Radical simplicity.
Yeah.
All of it.
Right. Well, I wanted to, you've been reflecting on the business. I don't know how far back you've looked, but I'm curious if you have regrets, or if, since, hindsight is 2020, are there decisions that you've made along the way that you might have approached differently if you kind of knew then what you know now?
Yeah. Oh, that's true. That's definitely true. For me, it's all very personal. I feel like where I have not followed my own intuition, where I let the brand go a bit astray, or where we got maybe started expanding too much. I feel like really at the core of it, my issue is that I didn't speak up enough, that I didn't articulate what the DNA of this brand was about, the radical simplicity, the timeless design, the ethos of the design, what the kinds of styles were that fit, what the fit of the line was about. I didn't sort of write it down, so I'm saying I didn't lay down the blueprint of what this design was, because I think that it ended up becoming a little too dependent maybe on me, or not just me, because over the years we had a team of people that grew with the company very organically, and so I didn't have to say things people knew. It was very organic. And so as the company grew and we took in new people, there wasn't a clear blueprint about who we were and what we were trying to do, and what mattered to me. And I think that if I could do anything differently, and which is what I'm actually trying to do now, is I'm trying to literally lay down the blueprint, of what this design is. Because I say this design isn't about me, even though the idea of it came through me. I feel like it's more like, I almost call it like it's not Bauhaus design, but it's an idea about design, and about a simple design, and the way the shapes work and the way they work together, and the way we use fabric and that kind of thing. So I'm in the midst of trying to lay down the blueprint, which I didn't do before. And so new people would come in and interpret it their way, and they didn't have enough history, and it's not their fault. It would be understandable. But so my regret is that it's my voice that I don't clearly explain what I'm trying to do. So I'm doing that now. I'm trying to do that so that I can prepare for the next phase, which is, I'm 70 years old. So the next phase will have to not include me at some point.
Great. Okay. That's so, that's a really interesting point. It seems sort of parallel to something I've been hearing some people talk about, including when we spoke on the podcast. Rebecca, I think, mentioned having a North Star, and sort of like knowing where you're going, being focused on that. It seems. You mentioned the Take Back program, and so I just wanted to talk a little bit about that. I know it's something you're excited about, and Eileen Fisher kind of was one of the early brands to have that kind of program. But I wanted to recognize the reality that oftentimes Take Back programs only keep a fraction of things in circulation, and the rest ends up as waste in the global south. And we could talk for a long time about circularity and like recycling and repair and reuse, and what it will take to achieve circularity. But I want to stay focused on the business model implications. And so in cases where Take Back does work as well as a brand intends it to, and where the company, like you were saying, takes full responsibility for all of it, kind of the other concerns aside, there are advocates of the kind of degrowth concept that say that even that kind of repair and resale still relies on churning out new things. I was just curious your thoughts on that, if you hear that, or what you think about that.
Well, I don't know if that relies so much on churning out new things, because we got a lot of stuff out there that could be repaired and reused and reworn. So I don't know that that's necessarily goes together. But I do think that there's a lot that doesn't work about take back programs. There's a lot that actually calls you to a different action when you start to see the take back program, and what the implications of it are, for me, just like seeing, we've been doing this for 13 years, and, just trying to figure out how to resell most of it. We established another category of the not quite perfects that we sell to help sell more of it. And we still have a lot of product that we're still trying to figure out what do we do with. We have now this felting process, which we can use a lot of our materials, but not everything. And so what does that mean in terms of then how do we go back and rethink? It causes you to rethink how you design. Like, what are we designing with? What materials are we using? And even just deconstructing, you have to make, if things are really complicated, it's hard to deconstruct them, to remake them into other things. So that whole circular mindset causes you to rethink a lot. But you're right, the take back programs are not, they're not the panacea that you think. I really do agree with you that overproduction is the biggest culprit to climate change. I think it's the biggest problem. I think if we reduced our consumption and production radically, and I think that would make a big difference. I think that somehow I feel like we need government to step in here and help, to force the issue. Yeah. I don't know what to say about it. We struggle with our take back program, and I think there's a lot of good about it. And we have high quality materials and things that people want to buy in their second life, and ways to do a lot with third life, but not all of it. So we're still looking at solutions for some of the materials that we're struggling with. So that points to still too much consumption.
Right. I think as you were talking, one thing that it sort of stirred up for me is, throughout the conversation, it seems like there's sort of a fundamental tension between the spirit of fashion and the business of fashion. And is that something that, since you seem to sort of embody that tension sometimes, and I'm curious if you think that, do you?
Yeah, well, that's really good. What comes up for me is to think about it like food, like there's a tension between just wanting to eat a lot of wonderful, amazing, rich, tasty foods. But it's also possible to eat sustainably and to have really tasty, healthy, wonderful food, and to not eat too much and to actually eat it really slowly. Like, I took this meditation class one time, and they had us eat a raisin. Like, take, hold a raisin in your mouth for, I don't remember how long. It felt like 30 minutes, but it might have been 3. I don't remember. But to really appreciate. And I think that same thing goes for clothing. That's why we're trying to just make the fabrics we love, just work with the things we love the most, just really find the things that are most useful, find the shapes that work for people in different ways, and that they can play with and have fun with and feel really good in. Just like, it's almost like if you think about food and you think about certain food gives you instant gratification. I love chocolate, but I try to eat just a little. But certain food makes you feel good when you eat it, it tastes good, and other food, really works for you. And I think the same with clothes. It's like something draws my eyes, something excites and delights me. And, that's okay a little. We need joy in our clothes, but we want clothes that make us feel good, that support us to really be comfortable with ourselves, and that last and that work, and, that we don't have to spend a lot of time shopping for, or, but we still need some new things. Like, I have a couple of new colors that I'm just crazy for, and a few new pieces this year that just make me happy. So, it's a balance, but we need to lean into the less kind of balance,
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm really curious. We only have a few more minutes, but I'm curious what you are choosing to give up, if anything, in financial or business terms. Does the fashion industry need to put more on the line, do you think, in order to be truly sustainable and not just, because right now it seems like a lot of the efforts are just kind of tweaking around the edges to the
Uh-huh.
system.
Yeah. Oh, that's a good question. What to give up? Um, uh, I think giving up the need to grow, giving up, how do we create wonderful businesses that don't need to grow so much or that don't rely on growth? Uh, I don't exactly know. I think we need to be at a certain size. I think it's just like money in general. We think we need so much, but once we get to a certain, I was a part of this happiness project one time, the Gross
Mm.
National Happiness Project. And, you know, they came to this realization that once people got, their their needs met and then sort of like, I'm going to say 10% extra, a certain amount extra so that they could, have some things that they extras in their lives and all of that. Then after that, they're not any happier when they have, whether they have millions of dollars or, 5 homes or, can travel and do everything that they want to do. They're just not any happier. So what's that threshold of how much do we want to make? How big do our businesses need to be so that we can make them great and wonderful places to work and live in and be in and not rely on just grow more. Somebody told me once the only thing that grows exponentially is cancer.
Yeah.
So that's pretty scary. So we want to grow in healthy, natural, comfortable ways. And I
Right.
don't know. It's hard because, you know, business and capital, venture capital, and all those kind of things demand that we grow. And I think we want to grow certain kinds of good businesses, that you know that actually make things better. That's good, So good growth. I would hold that idea. Give up growth and only do good growth. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I think that's a great note to sort of end on. We're gonna still do the Q&A, but we are running close to out of time. So this has been a fantastic discussion, and we are going to get to some questions from the audience in just a second. But first, I just wanted to look back quickly at some of the main points that we've covered today. If you haven't yet and have questions, now's the time to put them into the Q&A in the Zoom. But yeah, let's review. So slow down, less is more. I would say that sounds like a key message from Eileen today, and focusing on quality and value so that customers can invest more in what they buy and keep it longer, and it allows on the brand side for more sustainable practices, more taking time to plan more deliberately, with more intentionality, and potentially more profit per purchase. And then on the circuit, to get to the circularity side, it allows for, it like builds the sort of foundation that you'll need for successful take back programs, for repair and resale, because you'll have more engaged consumers. Get to know your supply chain and the people in it. I know we didn't get to talk about this very much, but I know that that's something that that you've been doing, Eileen, with working with regenerative farmers, and
Right.
and I don't know if you want to add quickly, like if they're, but I know that that's something, like looking to people who are doing the thing. Those are the people who have the solutions rather than people
Definitely.
high
Yeah,
up.
just to add, this is a really actually compelling idea that you through the supply chain, there are so many ways to make a difference, to help to partner with the suppliers to actually, like we were talking about regenerative agriculture, working with the farmers and helping them transition their farms into regenerative or organic, or working with the dye houses and helping them switch over to cleaner chemistry. There's so many ways when you get to know your supply chain that you can actually support and make a positive difference in the world through do that work. So that's
Yeah.
important.
That's great to hear. And then, yeah, just finally collaborating more and competing less. And companies need to work together because no one brand can solve all of the problems. And especially with some of the larger, the overproduction and the take back, the government intervention also has a role, but it's a really sort of ecosystem of problems, and so it needs to be an
Definitely.
ecosystem approach
Yeah.
to solve.
Yeah. I wanted to say something about that. I'm trying to remember the whole idea of pre-competitive, connecting with others and partnering around, regenerative agriculture projects or cleaner chemistry projects. And there's many good ways to do that move the needle. I hope move the needle faster, bigger, more, but working together is the only way we're going to do it. It's too big. The industry is so big. And we also need to move our investments into supporting cleaner technology and being able to, find ways to invest in funds that are doing this kind of thing. I like to say, move the global flow of capital into sustainable businesses. And there are ways to do that through our investments.
Okay.
That's just another thing.
Yeah, it's and there is, I'm hearing a little bit more about some of those, about pre-competitive efforts, and it definitely,
it's good.
It's an exciting time if that's happening. Yeah.
Organizations, there's a lot of organizations to participate with.
Right.
So it's all good. Excellent.
Yeah. Well, so we have some good questions from the audience. So I'm just gonna read one of them. From another Rachel. Eileen, thank you for this conversation. You're such an inspiration. You mentioned you're working on the blueprint for radical simplicity to ensure your business can enter the next phase in the future. Do you have some ideas on what that next phase might look like, and what are a couple of the biggest obstacles you might face in reaching for that next phase?
Well, that's good. I mean, for me, I'm just trying, my obstacle is me. I think that I have to make a plan to move on, and so I'm trying to just set down the blueprint of the design philosophy itself, but also that will include, the sustainability aspects and, the culture aspects of what this company's about for me. What will it, I'm not sure I'm answering the question, but something like that. Yeah.
That's something to
It's important, though, to articulate it and define it. And what is this company about,
Yeah. Okay. And let's see, next question. Thank you for being here and happy Earth Day. Eileen, I love that you mentioned building seasons based on how the sales floor looks. How do you plan to balance brick and mortar versus online going forward?
That's really good. That's a really hard question. I am thinking about that, and I don't know all the answers. But I know that stores are important. I know that people need connection, and they need to try on clothes and feel things and understand what works for them. And at the same time, I think that digital space has been a really important place to kind of tell stories and feature certain things. And so I think it's really how do we balance digital and stores. And we've really moved into digital so much over the past year because our stores were closed for a chunk of time, and just really getting more reopened in the last period of time. So it's forcing us to kind of rethink. But I I walked into my store the other day and went, oh my God, it looks better than it looked 2 years ago. And we've been struggling with limited staff and visual teams. We haven't been able to support all the kind of work that we had for so many years. But I think because the product makes sense, because of this new business model of rolling the product and kind of building on the month's delivery, So I think that that's what I'm trying to do in the store. But we are considering models, like we have this lab store here in Irvington, and I love this model because it's a larger store that is not, it's a more of a destination location. So the rent is fairly reasonable, but it has a section for our renew, our recycle, that sells our waste no more, our products that we remake. And it has some samples and miscellaneous other things, but it also has a full spread of the current product. And we used to, before COVID, we did educational things there. Teaching people how to fix a sweater, mend a sweater, or, make different kinds of things, knitting, sewing, all kinds of things we were teaching. We had kind of regular Saturday classes there, and that was really nice because it's a community kind of. So I like this model of this kind of larger destination store where we can do more experience, educational kinds of things, probably styling workshops, things like that. But also, it's interesting to think about more. We're doing some Zoom calls and some of that kind of stuff. It's interesting to play with that. But what becomes of the regular store, the expensive rent, and how do we think about that going forward? I'm not really sure. Do we do more of the showrooming model where you have less pieces? I don't know. We currently do ship from store, which is it's nice because anyway, I'm thinking, but lots to think about, and that store, the balance is really important, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, clearly it's an ongoing conversation, and that one particularly probably for a lot of brands just because of COVID. See, next question. You have talked a lot about overproduction. What do you think about the power of on-demand production to help sell?
Well, I think that's amazing, and we are far from that. I think that you really have to be set up differently than we are. You mean that the idea that you would produce each piece as it's ordered, to order, custom, kind of that kind of thing. I think that the technology is coming out there where those kinds of things are going to be more and more possible. That's a very interesting idea. I have not explored it. I don't know much about it, but I think that's intriguing.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think we are out of time. I'm being told we have to wrap up. So, thank you. Thanks, everyone, for watching. And Eileen, thank you so much for spending your Earth Day morning with us, and for just for talking about these just really big, important questions.
Big topics, and thanks for your passion around these topics. It's wonderful, Rachel. It's really wonderful.
Thank
you.
We
need more views.
Thank you. It's very kind. Well, thank you for again for being here, and thanks everyone for attending. To our viewers, just to let you know, we have our sustainability forum coming up on May 26th. We'll be exploring sustainability as we've been talking about here, not as any one brand's job, but as a common industry goal. The website is for Vogue Business members. Registration is open on the website. Join us to hear from Vogue Business editors. Opening remarks will be given by Alok Sharma. He's president of the next COP conference, the 26th United Nations Climate Change Conference. And I'll catch up with JB Straubel, the co-founder of Tesla and the founder and CEO of Redwood Materials, to discuss fixing fashion from the outside in and the important distinction between incremental improvements and systemic change. We hope to see you there, and thank you all so much for being here. Happy Earth Day.